going to come up. So I'm just kidding. I think this is a great class. I'm excited about it. But full disclosure, I will not have answers. Jason will. Jason will be able to cover all the answers, any kind of scenario we can throw out. I'm going to help try to stump Jason, but I will not have the answers. All right, we ready?
Ready.
We've never done this before, so this is a new deal. So hopefully we'll have some open conversation and some interaction, and we can kind of.
Oh crap!
Oh my gosh, Whittle, why did you allow Carol to sit right next to Caitlin? It's too late, Carol. We've seen you.
Can I ask a question?
No. What
do either one of your guys' teams have like an electronic version of what you put into a listing packet or a selling packet?
Wow, that's a good question. Electronic version? I don't know.
Maybe not everything that's electronic, but most of it. I mean, we have our listing booklets, like our marketing deal, or, you know, like a buyer's guide, seller's guide. We have that digitally. Absolutely. We can share that. And then, but are you at, like, I know like agents, they go on a listing and they'll grab all kinds of stuff. I don't think we have all of it.
No problem. I was just curious. Anything that you guys can send me would be helpful.
I need to write it down.
So we could absolutely scan that as well. Are you talking about, would scan accomplish what you're looking for, or would are you thinking editable?
No, a scan version would be helpful too. I just need examples of like a couple different examples of what to throw in each. So.
There's like an echo.
What?
You hear that echo, Kevin?
Yeah,
No,
I hear an echo.
No, I don't.
Yeah, I don't either.
Okay.
You want to go for the? You want to go for the first slide?
Yeah, I mean, I want to just open this up for questions and comments too. You know, we might have to write some of these things down and come back to them. But if anybody has just open questions, don't hesitate to shoot one. We went ahead and logged some forms. We held some forms, have some forms loaded into the presentation so that we can research and talk about different scenarios. But if anybody has any questions, we're ready for those as well.
Jeff, I've got one. Going back to an open house, I had some people come in, and I always ask them if they're working with an agent already, you know, before I start talking to them. And they said that somebody had been sending them listings, but they'd never met that person. Would that be considering crossing the line, working with them as a client, or since they're already getting listings from another agent, should I just leave them alone?
No, I mean, my opinion of that is when a customer logs on to a website, they're not logging on to one, they're logging on to 5. So until they have an agency relationship, you know, I would follow that up with, well, you know, have you met with them? Is that someone that you want to work with? Have you signed an agreement with them yet? You know, I like to, you know, I'm happy if you haven't, I'm happy to show you what I do. And if you're comfortable working with me, you know, that's common, because when they're at that point, they're not, you know, there's no exclusivity in that. They're likely on lots of people's drip systems and websites. Jason, do you agree with that?
100%. Yeah. Usually they're getting emails from multiple agents, and they're looking on Zillow and Realtor.com. And so I don't think you're crossing the line. I think you're doing a good job by asking. I think you always want to ask, and you want to make sure that there's not been agency, or maybe if it's, if they have been showing them, if they have been showing them property, and at least you know what you're dealing with at that point.
Okay, yeah, no, they
You're
have
not
never.
very loyal to them. They're probably not going to be very loyal to you either. So, you have an opportunity to choose whether you're going to work with that person or not. So,
Okay, that's
But-
kind of the way I approach it, but I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't stepping on somebody's toes. They've never met the agent, just getting listings from them.
Ron, we've got people in our drip system that have been there for years. And,
Okay.
and, on some hands, they've got a great relationship. That agent's talking to them all the time. And in some circumstances, they've been on there for years and nobody ever follows up with them. So they have zero relationship. So yeah.
Okay, good deal. Thank you.
Anybody, any other questions?
nope, good class.
All right.
No, I'm just kidding.
Shut her down. Let's talk about some things that have come up recently that would be worth talking about. So we've loaded these forms on here so that we can go back and forth through, most of the broker type questions revolve around the forms and the scenarios that we get into when we're dealing with multiple offers and or changing a contract, or and these contracts themselves change so frequently that literally our agents bring up the changes to me most of the time, not the other way around, because they add things, they add little things all the time that we have to know. So trying to think about how to start. Anybody have anything they want to talk about, with respect to the residential sales contract? Any questions or any concerns with that?
Jeff, when we were talking about the dock permits this morning, and did you say Amendment A? Is that what you said? I'm not familiar with that.
Addendum A?
Addendum A, yes.
Do we have that loaded on here?
No,
Okay.
but it is on the reference tab in pipeline under forms.
Okay, so is that necessary, Jeff, when anytime you have a dock permit, you have to do that?
So what Addendum A is, Ron, is it is a attachment that we came up with on our own. It's not a MAR form. It's not a board form. Lots of companies don't require it, but basically it just says that there's a couple boxes you can check, and if they have we only require it with residential lakefront transactions. And what it does is it gives you, the agent, the opportunity to pick out of a couple different boxes and check mark where the client has to provide all of the I think we're looking for it right now. The client has to provide all of the available permits so that your buyer can research that. It forces the question about what permits are needed and are they up to date. And the reason we did it is because too many of those conversations were not being had, and it was accidentally putting our that stuff comes up at the last minute that, I didn't know we needed a pump permit for an irrigation pump. I didn't know that they put a swim platform on, and now I can't transfer that dock into my new people's names. So the idea was that it would force those conversations.
Okay, good deal.
Jason, you want to add that? I think I did a poor job of that.
No, you did a great job. And we talked a little bit about this morning in the primary power, was that in today's market, your buyer may choose not to do that. Like if you're in a multiple offer situation, you don't want to muddy the water. You still want to be having those conversations with the people. you know, and a lot of times it's possible to kind of see what has been, you know, if you see that there's a big old dock sitting there in a weird spot, that's a huge red flag. But if they've got 300 feet of lakefront and they're not in a narrow cove, I wouldn't be too worried. You know, there's a good chance, even if there's not a dock permit, that you're going to be able to get one. But it's about forcing those conversations with the clients, letting them know how important the electric is. We want to make sure that, and a lot of other companies have adopted, not this exact one, but similar ones, just because it is important. So.
Okay, thank you.
And even in a case where you can't use it, Ron, where another agent or another company might say they don't want it attached, we can cross it out. We
Okay.
just want to sign off on it and make sure that people have seen it, so they know what they should be asking or should
And
be looking.
a lot of them will accept. So dumb. I think they just do it just to be a pain. But we won't accept addendum A, but you can write it in special agreements. So then you just write in those requirements in special agreements.
We don't want to get in a position where they're not covered.
Okay, gotcha. I agree. Thank you.
You know. While we've got addendum A up, is there anybody other conversations? We have been asked to look at this again, mainly because of the days. Well, and we will relook at it. Obviously, all forms need to be looked at every once in a while, and we'll get an attorney's opinion on it. But the reasoning that this was not to fit all scenarios, and this was not to necessarily provide for all the timelines needed. It was just to force the conversation, if that makes sense. There's gonna be times with respect to permitting that we're not gonna have enough time. You know, people are gonna want to close, but as long as we know it all, as long as everybody knows what they need to deal with, it's okay. That makes sense? Okay. Kaylin, you want to switch me back there? Okay. Hey, somebody want to take a shot at explaining why we wouldn't want to put personal property on a front page of a contract? Because that comes up a lot. It messes up a lot of loans is the short story. And it's you know, it's negotiated in a lot of deals down here, a lot, but they have jump in anytime.
And Jeff, with that too, can you guys hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, and with that too, a lot of times when you're putting the personal property on the front page of the contract, then we always have to go back and do an amendment, because more than likely the lender will contact us and ask us to remove all personal property from the contract. So then that's another form that we're having to do to send to clients and try to get it all signed by both sides. And so it is a lot easier to not have it on there to begin with.
Mm-hmm. Doesn't it have to match the bill of sale as well?
What's that?
What do
I
you
said,
mean?
doesn't it have to match the bill of sale as well?
No, so the bill of sale is actually what takes the place of writing it on there. That's what
Oh, okay, gotcha.
they'll create a bill of sale.
Yeah.
And
If they do, there's a couple title
if they do,
companies.
they may not, but
Yeah, they actually don't. So that was one thing that was worth mentioning that we didn't really cover in any kind of forms class, but it definitely comes up all the time. The other thing, they have a earnest money rider now that addresses non-refundable earnest money. For years and years, that was something that was talked about only in special agreements, and it was still a challenge to interpret it, not to interpret what it means. It was a challenge because if earnest money is put in a title company, they're not going to let it go anyway. Without a signed mutual release by both parties, even if you have it worded non-refundable, they're going to give you trouble. So that rider is interesting. I think it's got to be. I haven't really noticed it, so it has to be relatively new, I would think. You can have earnest money written directly to a seller, and that is not, you don't see that very common, but that's the true way to make it non-refundable if it's written to the seller. Any other questions about the first page? Let's just keep going through this contract. Somebody has a question or a comment, please bring it up and help out, because we don't know what you guys encounter all the time until you bring them up. The appraisal contingency seems to be a hot topic. Obviously put it in the body of the contract not long ago. Prior to that, it was something that you found on a rider. And this has become a big time topic because in multiple offers, people are check marking the appraisal box, and then this is getting negotiated. I mean, it can either, sometimes it makes the offer weak, or viewed as weak from what I hear. I hear a lot of agents say, well, I've got a great offer, but they've got a contingent upon appraisal. So we were just talking about the difference between appraisal and financing. And it used to be that when a financing contingency was checked, the people, you really kind of felt like that was an appraisal contingency as well, which it kind of is. I mean, if a property doesn't appraise and it's not specifically contingent upon the appraisal contingency, that is still going to change the terms, which may allow them not to qualify for a bank. But it doesn't really give you the ability to negotiate based upon the appraisal not coming out like that appraisal contingency is. You want to add anything to that, Jason?
Oh, that was good. That was nothing.
It's just coming up a lot. And a lot of times, as long as buyers are okay, you might need to get it off of there to clean it up. If they're absolutely not okay with it, then you got to leave it on there. But just because a property doesn't appraise doesn't mean that the people will view it as not worth it. They just might have to put more money down.
Hey, the other thing we just want to be mindful of, especially
You locked up, buddy.
I think we locked up.
I think we did. I don't seem to be, I don't know if anybody can hear me. Lisa, look, Caitlin's moving around. I'm seeing
Jason's the only one.
people doing okay.
Yeah, I can hear
Jason's
you.
the only one I can't hear.
Okay. Sorry about that. I'm sure he'll log back in. I don't know what he was going to tell. I was on the edge there. He was saying we need to be mindful. And I was like, yes, I want to be mindful, but I don't know what we're going to be mindful of. Time frames on title and survey are coming up. This is a question. I've seen a few people not change the 10 days on line 83 to accommodate, and title companies are so busy they're having problems staying within that. So that's something to look out for as well, to just change that.
Jason's back.
He's back. Hey, we're on the edge of our seats. We want to know what to be mindful of. I'm ready.
I'm sure you covered it. Did
No.
you not fill in? Just be mindful. Were we talking about mindful of the dates? I don't know even how far it disappeared with me. So just be mindful of the dates as you're protecting your sellers and protecting your buyers. Make sure that they're lining up. You don't want somebody to be able to walk away the day before closing. Your sellers are moved out. Make sure you're giving yourselves plenty of time. So
Another thing real quick that you just reminded me of, Jason, by saying the dates. That's another thing that I've noticed is that the dates a lot of times are not working out with the contract dates. For example, you have a closing that's, sometimes quick closings. You'll have a 25-day closing. Well, then you've got the appraisal and the loan due in 30 days. Well, that's past the close date. And I've noticed that a lot and have to go back and go, okay, we're past the date. What do we need to do? And, how do you want to do this? So that's another thing too, is to make sure that those dates are within your time frame, especially of your close date, because I've had a lot of stuff come up after the close date.
Yeah, you don't want them anywhere near your close date, I feel like. The
Exactly.
other thing, what I started to say, I don't know if you heard me or not, but a lot of times appraisers, title companies, there's not as much urgency when you push them further out. So they seem to get on them quicker if they're quicker, if that makes sense. So you don't want to give yourself too little of time where you have to make an amendment where, you know, at that point, if you're representing a buyer, if it's too little of time and you have to make an amendment and then somebody puts a stronger backup in, that could you're playing a fine line there. So just be mindful of those, talk about those scenarios with your buyers and sellers, and not every situation is the same. So.
Good. Let's go to the next page. See if we got anything there. I have seen had a lot of conversation about in the inspection notice paragraph, the additional days. Has anybody used the additional days? It's about 143, line 143. That has come up several times. It's a good thing. It's nice to have that in there, to have a little more time. I also, for the first time, personally, that I don't know if anybody does this and I missed it, but this 154 limitation of inspection rights, I've seen that used on a couple multiple offer deals, which I thought was interesting. Has anybody seen that or used it or paid attention to it?
No.
Jason, have you seen that?
Have I seen him use it?
Have you seen him use it?
Yeah, we've seen some multiple offers where people have chosen to unilaterally do away with it on a newer home or condo.
Right.
You got to be careful, you know.
Absolutely.
Or if maybe you're dealing with a contractor and it's a fixer upper and he's gone through, you know, again, there's no cookie cutter answer to that. Each case is a case by case situation, but it's all dependent on whether you're you know, certainly don't force something on or suggest something that a buyer is not going to be comfortable with as it pertains to inspections. But if they are, make sure you're having that conversation.
Let's keep moving. If anybody's got any questions, yell at us, or send us a note. Anything on home warranty? If you're selling,
Hey,
I was talking to George, and he said that when he has a buyer, he typically asks for a home warranty as part of the deal. Is that pretty typical? Should I be trying to work in a home warranty?
typical is scary. You
That's
know,
a good question.
it is a good question. Home warranties are great. I mean, they're another release of a limit. It helps limit the liability. But if you're talking about negotiating them in, if you're in a real competitive deal, I don't know if that would be worthwhile.
I understand. Yeah. In today's market, probably not.
Hey, so this isn't necessarily for all homes, but we had a question come up in here. One of our agents was representing a buyer, and they asked they wanted to make sure that it was covered under the new builder home warranty. And I had been told years ago that in the state of Missouri that home builders were required to provide a home warranty, that it was implied basically. So not one that you buy, but it's implied, something's not right with the house. You would think that a builder would want to do that just for reputation. Something's wrong, they'd come back. But this particular builder was not wanting to do that. And so I just asked an attorney that I know, and Here was his answer. I thought it was pretty interesting. He said it depends on what kind of structure. There's statutory 6-year warranties on condos under the Uniform Condominium Act, which can be reduced to 2 years if the paperwork is done correctly. He said outside of condos, there's an implied warranty at law that a structure sold by the builder is habitable and fit for its particular purpose and that is built in a manner that is acceptable and up to industry standards in the area where it was built. It opens up the builder to liability if there's defects, but it's not a home warranty as most people use that term. They don't have to come back and fix things that the buyer, it says that the buyer could sue the builder for money if there are problems, but he said it's a slim chance of them getting that. It does not require the builder to purchase a third-party home warranty at closing. And I just thought that was interesting and worth sharing because I had always thought that, yeah, they have to provide a
So
warranty.
what's the best way to handle that if you're selling something that's brand new and you're representing the buyer?
Well, I would try to get something in writing that there is that the builder / seller agrees to, I don't know the exact wording,
Well,
agree to come back and fix anything, you know, and I don't know how the wording would be.
well, you can do a
This
punch list type deal.
Literally about 10 days ago, so.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know exactly either because that's pretty unique, but you can do a punch list deal, you know, and get as much completed prior to close as possible
Well, for sure, but this was more about, you know, what happens in
down the road.
6 months and the cabinet falls off, you know.
Mhm. Yeah.
You would think that a builder would just by nature do that, but this guy was not one, had no interest in doing it, so.
Wow. Okay. That's interesting. I don't really see a lot here. Does anybody have anything? Occasionally we'll get conversations about 1031. You know, it's good to know that there is language in there about 1031, assignability. You'll hear that occasionally, not a lot. Don't really have anything else here. Any questions or anything on this one? Okay, keep going.
You know, one of the things we get, we hear sometimes, well, they're required, you know, they have to send me a seller's disclosure. They don't unless you write, you know, if it's part of the contract and you've made it part of the contract and they've agreed to that, then yes, but they're not by law required to fill out a seller's disclosure. That doesn't mean that the seller is exempt from not disclosing anything that could be, what's the word I'm looking for?
Material.
Yeah, material defect. Any material defect, they're still required by law to disclose that. So
Just to add on to that one, Jason, the seller's disclosure we have now actually gives the seller an out and says they won't disclose any further. But I've had agents demand, you know, that a seller fill one out. They don't have to. And best practice, by the way, is never fill a disclosure out for anybody.
no way.
Right. Well, I've seen that done inadvertently. The agent didn't think about it. You know, they thought they were helping the people, an older couple, and they were sitting down filling it out with them. Well, don't do that.
Yeah,
That's not good.
we can help them, but don't write it in there for me.
Right.
One question on that, if you do have a seller's disclosure and you have it uploaded into Matrix in your docs there, is that considered presenting a seller's disclosure, or do you have to physically email them one?
Well, I would make sure that they receive, if they write it in there, just say, hey, I want to make sure you received it because at the end of the day, they have to sign it and then send it back. So,
Okay,
you know, the buyers are signing that as well.
gotcha, thank you.
Let's keep going. We got some good stuff that'll come up here eventually. I don't think there's any really. There's not a lot of
Make
questions that
sure
come
you
up on
guys
this
are-
page.
Make sure you're marking and writing your name in on the licensee personal interest disclosure if you are the buyer or seller, if you're a part of it, or any family member, immediate family member. What was the ruling on that? We just asked. What was that?
Blood or marriage. Blood or marriage. So if it's my brother-in-law, that's an immediate family member. I think that was the definition of that, Jason.
Mhm. Better to disclose as opposed to
It doesn't, yeah.
don't to disclose.
Can't hurt, might help.
Okay.
Ready?
I have a question.
Yes,
on this
ma'am.
page.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, get ready.
Here it comes.
Okay, so we get this contract from the buyer's agent, we're the listing agent, and they do not mark designated agency. So when our agent gets that to sign that, and the buyer's agent did not mark buyer's agency, they marked the, I can't even see it, seller's limited agent. Our agent mark that and sign it at that time.
You're asking, can they hand do it and not require the initials? Is that what you're asking, Carol?
Yes, yes. Because
Yes. So anytime, I'll tell you the broker answer. Anytime you fill something in that is not filled in at the, prior to closing, you're supposed to initial it.
well, not prior to closing, when we. get
No,
that-
prior to, I'm sorry, I said prior to closing. I meant prior to everyone's signatures. If one person signs and then you fill it in, it's got to be initialed. Is
Okay.
that what I meant? So, even though that's silly, that is the way it is supposed to be done according to the MREC.
Okay. Because we're seeing a lot of that because, a lot of outside offices
They don't know.
doing.
They don't know.
Mm-mm. They don't know we're doing it right and they're doing it wrong.
Well, and here,
Yes, what if they didn't? What if they didn't fill out anything? What if they just filled out the whole thing? What if they didn't fill out any of the licensee assisting seller because they didn't know or they didn't care to fill it out? Then
Can the agent fill that out, sign it,
does say
then we
use
get it back
Carol's-
to them, or? It's such a fine line. We get that a lot.
Jeff?
I'm thinking, I personally don't care. I don't think that we would get, I just like that box question that you just brought up about designated agency. Nobody else signs on that page. It is already put down that they're a seller's limited agent. They just check mark the designated. That is where we really have trouble because, all we're trying to do, we know that it's not a legal issue. We're just trying to be cognizant of where we're going to get dinged on a audit. So it becomes a challenge between something that is making our agents jump through hoops because we feel like they might catch us on it or ding us on it, versus doing it on our own. And, they can tell it's written in there. They can tell it's check marked with a pencil or a pen and not typed.
Mhm.
I'm open to whatever the best, whatever we want to decide to do on something like that. It's not a humongous deal. My hope would be that doesn't happen very often.
It does. I mean, you get people all the time from the other brokerage halfway filling those out. And
I think that you're going to get dinged more often because you don't have it filled out rather than if that section's not initialed. So my my preference would be that it's filled out and signed rather than going back and getting initialed every time. Because it's going to be and I feel like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth with that, but best practice is to initial any change, but sometimes we're not going to be able to do that.
Ready for the next one?
Carol, are you okay with that?
I'm good. Uh-huh.
Okay.
Hi,
I'm
Patty.
Carol loves gray. She likes gray.
There's a lot of that in here.
She does not like gray. She
I
likes
know she does.
white.
I know she doesn't like gray.
Black and white.
She'll punch that screen if you keep it up.
No,
Um,
I just want to make my brokers happy.
You do.
very much so.
Please say
I'm
no.
glad. Hey, and you know what? We're glad that you asked the questions. That's what keeps us all out of hot water. And an agent doesn't want to ask those questions. When we're putting a deal together, we don't want to ask those questions. So I'm just trying to walk a line where we can, be compliant and yet keep everybody happy too.
Well, and at this point in RE/MAX, every agent here is writing contracts right and left. And they're just, pretty much going through the motions, and they, sometimes they forget, so it's just a crazy time right now, and it's just,
It is. It's. Yep.
it makes sense.
Okay. I don't know that there's anything to cover on this page. It just, you do have a difference between a individual buyer and an entity. And so you can use that entity anytime you have an LLC or a partnership of any kind of trust. Use that 464, 465 if you can. That's what it's there for.
Hey, go back to that real quick.
Hey, I had a question about that. I had a question about something there.
Go ahead.
So I present an offer. I'm negotiating on multiple offers and I lose. And I go back to the other agent and I say, I would like to see, I want proof that it was presented. So the question is, does a seller have to sign a rejection of an offer? So we had this call, we called the hotline on this the other day as a question just to verify it. And the answer is no, you can't force a seller to sign. I do think that if we're dealing with multiple offers and we're the listing agent, that should be professional courtesy if somebody doesn't accept an offer. If the people are wanted to reject it and show them that it was rejected, that's all it takes is an initial. But in this case, when it came up, the response was that you can't force them to. It was interesting.
Doesn't it expire though?
Yes.
Yeah, it wouldn't matter. But I mean, the other agent, one of the agents that lost, Patty, was not happy and they were concerned that it wasn't presented. And they were
Yeah.
dealing with a listing agent in another company. And the question is,
Oh, I get it. Yeah.
can't we make them do that? And the answer was no.
No.
I
Okay.
mean, you get 19 offers. I doubt if you're going to go through and
Well, majority of people wouldn't suspect that it wasn't presented when it's handled correctly. But in this case, there was probably reason to suspect that it wasn't presented. So I understand the agent's question.
you do have the right to present your own offer.
Yes.
I haven't seen that very many times, but I have seen it and heard of it. So if you suspect that your offer will not be submitted or not be submitted in the light that you want it to be, you have the right to submit your own contract to the seller.
Have you ever seen that?
I've heard of it.
I've heard of it. I don't know that I've ever actually seen it. But you do. I know it's come up. You do have that right.
I've had clients who are from California and they were both in real estate. They said it happened often there.
I've heard of that in different markets. Hey, counteroffer 1. Okay, real quick, just wanted to go over line 6 through 8. This comes up more often than you'd think. Any terms agreed to in a previous counteroffer must be included in this contract offer, along with any new proposed changes. Only the terms contained in this counteroffer, together with the remaining unchanged terms of the contract, including any addenda or riders attached thereto, constitute the new offer. So if you have 3 counteroffers, your last counteroffer has to have everything in it, plus the, and it goes along, it does not carry what counteroffer 2 had in it, is what I'm saying. Anything.
Carries what's on the original contract and the last counter.
That's it.
On the original contract, it better be on that last counter, or any terms that you deem changed or you think are changed, it better be on the counter.
Now, the reason it comes up, Jason, is because us, old dogs remember when it was different, because they changed this process a couple times, but I love the fact that they wrote it in bold in 6 and 8. So just kind of a reminder from a broker standpoint that comes up more often than you'd think. And it causes problems because it's thought to be carried through and it's not. So just wanted to remind you about that. We added this on there, contingency for sale of buyer's property. And we also added on the next one, I think it goes on to the existing property kickout, seller's kickout notice, buyer's kickout waiver. What we're seeing is an offer will start out. We're seeing a lot of offers now that start out as someone has a contract on a piece of property and there is a contingency for sale of buyer's existing property in that contract. Then another offer comes through later and enforces the kickout clause. That's, go back one more time, that's in the contingency. So 13 through 15, there's a kickout clause in there. Everything's going fine. And then boom, here comes another contract. The contract is accepted in a backup position, and you've got another accepted contract comes in here, and then the sellers enforce their kickout. So go to the next one. So when they're doing that, they provide a notice. Now, hang on, let's see, here we go. Seller's kickout notice to buyer would be part B. So they would fill this out, and then that starts their hours. I've had several conversations about what constitutes notice. And Jason and I had an interesting conversation with an attorney one time about, that was when we were still a dual agency company. You remember that?
Yeah.
And when you're a dual agency company, notice to one agent means that you provided notice to the company, notice to all. But I've had several conversations about what constitutes notice in this standpoint. Delivery to the agent is arguably notice. Any other thoughts or concerns about that? So when you deliver that, that's where your time starts.
It's not from when they sign, it's from when you deliver.
Right. But it's confusing because it can be filled out at the time that they sign. You see how that's on there?
Mm-hmm.
So I had some conversations about that. So you just want to be real specific with that when you're the agent delivering that notice. There's the kick out response to the waiver. So this is them waiving that contingency. Also realize that a contingency on a successful sale is different than a contingency on the, a contingency on a closing is different than the contingency on a sale. And contingencies on closings oftentimes don't have any kind of kick out. It's a contract. But we've had confusion about the negotiation, the difference between negotiating a contract with a contingency on a sale versus a contingency on a closing. That comes up occasionally.
Hey, Jeff,
Uh-oh.
We lost him again. Now, Kaylin, you know what it's like when we lose you.
Yeah, I see
And you're
that.
And you're still talking because he's probably talking.
You want me to go to the next one?
Yeah, go to the next one. He'll be back. Backup contracts. Wow, we talked about this today. You guys know that. See, for years we wrote this contract is in a backup position in special agreements. Now they have a form. So good that they have a form. This is very common, and we suggest this when you're writing a backup or a multiple offer situation and your people lose, get them in a backup. Backups are coming around. I mean, they were kind of poo-pooed in years past, but they can't hurt a buyer. If a buyer wants that property, put them in a backup. It may come. They may have a chance at it, and they can get out of a backup anytime that they want, as long as they deliver. It says it right here. Where is it? About line 14, maybe. Is that what it says right there? Which to elect in a notice delivered to seller to terminate this backup contract. So you can get out of it, if they find another place that's acceptable. So that was just, that's one of those things that, because of our market has kind of changed. I think agents are becoming more open to putting backup contracts on. And we've seen several come through. Any questions or concerns or thoughts about that? This is just another backup contract notice. So this is the seller's notice of prior contract release or waiver. You can kind of see what it does. We're just putting this on there because it wants you to know that these farms are out there and available. Any questions about that? Nope, we're all good. Okay. Authorizations to show. Just wanted to talk about authorizations to show for a minute because this comes up a lot. An authorization to show does not create an agency relationship, something I did not understand for a long time. So an authorization to show, you obviously have to have something signed that spells out your ability to show a property and also talks about the terms in which everybody agrees, but it's not a listing. It does not create that relationship, that agency relationship. So when you have an authorization to show, you're not representing the seller. You're either a transaction broker or you're a buyer's agent, likely a buyer's agent. But there's a lot of confusion around that comes up in conversations. Any questions? Just wanted to bring that up. Nope. Okay, we're good. Don't think we need anything. Listings. Any question? Any broker stuff about listings? Same little things apply from an MREC standpoint. They want every box filled out, even if it's a dash or an NA. They want every box filled. When they come and look at our listings, They look at, they look at contracts, they look at pendings, and they look at listings, even if a property hasn't sold. And then they compare they might compare our advertised properties back to, if they find an advertised property and they're doing an audit, they want to see a listing in the file. So that's why we audit our listings, to make sure that those have forms in them. Was somebody going to ask a question?
Hey Jeff, can you address line 270 with the email thing, just to clarify again?
Yeah, I
Absolutely.
have that one on here too.
So let's go through this real quickly until we get to that point. But you guys have any questions about the first page? I think we're okay. Should be okay. Second page, disclosures. I don't know if anything comes up on any of that, or there's any questions about any of that. You notice on line 75, notice of intended sale. So if you have a new home and someone's building a home and you're listing it, that builder needs to file a notice of intended sale with the title company at least 45 days, preferably like 60 days prior to any intended closing. If they don't, they will not be able to, there'll be a problem transferring cleared title. That's something that is relatively new. It's only a couple years old, and it's easily forgotten, and it's a bad surprise. So if you're selling something new, that notice of intended sale is real valuable for you to be able to talk to the seller about, the builder about. Don't see anything else on that page. Any other questions about that? So where's our line? What line was it? Okay, 270. Okay, so this box is I wish that they would have never put this on any listing ever. So this says you check the box. By checking this box, owner and realtor expressly acknowledge and agree that changes to this listing contract may be made by the persons identified below via email sent to and from their respective email addresses sent forth. What that means to a realtor is I can email any change, a price change, and I can just make it. And it's true, it does. That's what it means. But it is a massive can of worms. So we've had some really bad issues come up because the agent has 2 or 3 buyers, say it's a partnership, or for this example, which was a real example, let's say it was a couple getting a divorce, because that's really what it was, a couple getting divorced. I'll take you the short version. They wanted a price reduction. So our agent sent the price reduction to one of the email addresses, not both, got the price reduction, put the price reduction in, a contract came in, they negotiated, they started negotiating, and all at once, the wife said, I didn't agree to that price change. Well, if you go about allowing changes to your listing agreement, that means every email address associated with that owner and every owner has to be on each change. So we do not, as a company, we do not want changes made by email. Now, they can email a change and then we fill out a change, a listing change of status, and we get the listing change of status signed by the sellers, and we're great with that.
It doesn't mean you can't use DocuSign.
That's
It
correct.
just means that you're
Right. You can use
I could
DocuSign.
send an email to Jeff saying, hey, change my price. That's all it means.
And you know what else it doesn't mean? It doesn't mean we can't deal with a specific use or a specific time. We had a client, one of the agents had a customer that was a client, a seller in the hospital, and they were having a hard time. And we have the ability to do that. It's just that if we did that with all the listings, there's no way we could police it to protect you guys. because every listing change that comes just by email would have to be matched back up to every seller and the email addresses, and it's just a bad deal. Patty's smiling. She's got something to say. I see you.
Hope you're muted.
We can't hear you, Patty. You're muted.
I'm distracted by a text from a client,
Oh, good.
and it's a situation similar. So,
Yeah, I mean, you just can't. There's so many different scenarios. Just can't predict them all. So anyway, if it's a special case, bring it to us. We don't want to make it harder. We want to make it easier, but we don't want to inadvertently get in trouble. Oh, we did load a seller's disclosure on there. So you can see the second page of this. So they ask people to go through the first page, and then at the second page, I think they've got a spot where a seller can opt out.
One
Yep.
Sorry, one question that came up with seller's disclosures this week is should we or should we not list the unit number for condos? What is the best practice?
I would think you should, but there's a lot of stuff in a disclosure that the sellers will need to say, see COA, see Condo Owners Association, or see decks and bylaws, or they're going to have, in a condo, they're going to have to reference rules and regs or decks and bylaws, I would think, pretty often, but they need to disclose what's in their unit, because it, you know, that's what they're filling that out for. That would be my thought.
Yeah, you got to differentiate. You can't just put the street address of the whole
I figured.
complex.
Just wanted to clarify for that we had that come up this week. So second page. Oops, just kidding. That was just the first page. We didn't put the second page on there.
Well, I think everybody knows what that is. So anybody got any other questions? I mean, we're almost out of our hour already. Anything just off?
I missed the first half of this. Did you talk about acceptance deadline and that is not a response deadline?
We talked about counters. We didn't talk about that. That's a good thing to bring up. And just to make sure, Patty, how you want to talk about that. I mean, I have all the time, I have agents call that say, I put a 6 o'clock deadline and they're not responding. And it's like, they don't have to. So that's one side of that coin. People, sometimes we think that just because we put it on there means they have to. Really, they don't. They can let it go.
I called MAR twice about this, the legal line.
Yeah.
And they said if we wanted it to be a response deadline, it would have been called that. If they're bringing a new counteroffer, they don't have to meet that day or hour. But to me, it's a courtesy to let the other agent know, hey, look, they're not going to sign it as written, but and we can't meet the acceptance deadline for whatever reason, but we will be getting back with you. And then I, tell them we know time is of the essence, especially in this market.
I don't know. Did we lose everybody there? I just
No.
see me and you now.
No,
I don't know what happened on the screen.
Oh,
everybody's still there.
everybody's on there. Okay, good. I think that's great. I think you hit the nail on the head. It is it's sure a professional courtesy to let agents know what's going on. I would sure want somebody to let me know even if they weren't going to respond.
Yeah. Well, we're coming back, but we can't, we don't have to meet that time frame. We're trying to get it together as soon as we can. So,
Right. I'll tell you another thing I have heard a lot of lately is like a agent that has got they've won the contract. They're in first position, if you will, and they're representing the buyer. And this is outside of our company and inside of the company. They want to change, some type of change. Well, because of the competitive nature of the business, we talked about this morning. People, they might have a backup that's more money, and they're not going to change anything. And if the first party can't stay with it, they might lose. But I think that being aware of the nature of the beast today is really smart, so that you go into it anticipating that, hey, we're going to have to stick within these terms, and you try to do everything you can to cover it as best you can, because they might not agree to sign something.
They don't have to.
No, I just had one yesterday that the poor the other party was so upset, and it's like they don't really have to change. They don't have to change anything. I mean, it's interesting.
Also, you might have talked about this, but language in a counteroffer.
We read it.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Sorry, I missed the first half because I was
No.
dealing with a settlement statement for signing it for.
No, I got those. We got those questions, and that was one
Okay.
thing we wanted to do. I mean, I think that's a good reminder for everybody. And I said the old me doing this for a while. I remember when we didn't handle it like that. So it's changed.
Yeah.
But yeah,
It has.
not today.
Okay. Hmm.
Sure appreciate you guys. Hope this was our first shot at this, so I'm sure we'll get better. We got
Carol,
nowhere to
did
go
you
but
have a
up.
question?
Carol's got a question. Carol, what do you got? You're muted.
I'm muted.
No, you're good.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
On the contract, financing portion. We've got a buyer's agent that has, outside of us, written the contract, and they do not fill in all of the financing areas that we are required to fill in. I mean, not we, our agents are required to fill in. How do you want that handled? Because as a closer, I'm not going to go to another agent and say, hey, you need to fill this out, because they may not want to fill it out.
Yeah.
Did I explain that very clear?
Yeah. I think I understand that. So that was
being for somebody else, but would we want to protect our seller if it's just open-ended?
Yeah, but if our agent didn't catch it, the selling agent didn't catch it, I just need an answer to know how to proceed from now on.
I actually asked one time about that, and I was told to actually ask the other agent to fill it out, and so I did. I asked if they could do it. I just said, hey, this part, you missed this part, can you fill it in? And they were fine, and they filled it in.
so Carrie, that's what I was going to say. I would, my thought would be to ask them to fill it out. If they won't, we're not going to punish our own agent for something another agent was responsible to do. So in the end, we're not going to hold a checkup just because of our auditing, but they're going to get dinged for that if they get audited, because they got us on that many times. And it's silly, but they look at it. So we're not going to require it, but like Carrie did, we're going to ask. We would like you to just ask and see if they can get it filled out. But what Jason said was the most important. The agent who was involved in that really should be involved in how they fill that out, because that dictates what their financing contingency is all about.
If they write in there, well, I want a 1.5%, no 99%, like that gives them an out for anything. So
Sounds good.
Any more questions? Thank you guys for coming.
thank
Hey.
you guys.
Thank you guys for being nice to me.